I'm in my garden today. I'm just reviewing the damage left by storms. You can see the quail are lined up. They think they're getting some treats, which they probably will in a minute. So we've come through relatively well. The roof is intact and major structural elements of the house are fine, but the quailery, you may notice, has taken a bit of a beating. So at some point I need to sort out some kind of new roof structure, because that's the current state of it. You can see here it's basically just, it's rags. There's no water retention there at all. So essentially, if it rains, the quail get rained on, which I've managed to mitigate the real result of that, in that what I've done is I've put lots and lots and lots of wood chip down. So if I walk in there after rain, it's really squidgy underfoot, but the top layer, there's no standing water, so that at least they're not standing in water, and they don't have that problem. So that's something, I guess. But at some point I need to fix this. Now, when the storm was at its worst, I did actually cut some slits in this to stop it from sort of flying away entirely. And you can see where over the years the wind has rubbed it against the wire, and that of course has left holes. So there are patches. Most of this damage is actually from the storm, but you can see the plastic is quite brittle, and it's got to that stage now where it really does need replacing anyway. So I'm looking at options for this. I'm thinking that a solid roof is probably my best bet. The issue with that is that it will catch the wind quite nicely. It is an option though, as a solid roof, either on top of the mesh or underneath it, possibly. The internal structure might allow that, because there are these sort of poles that go along, so it might allow that. I do want some drainage, so you can see here my old drainage, which now doesn't work because there are holes in the ceiling, holes in the roof. But so I'm really sort of starting to consider options for that. I also, those of you who follow me for my ducks may notice the complete lack of ducks, because the pond is empty. So the ducks went to a new home some time ago. They've got a lovely new home with a running little river that goes through, stream, and nice big pond for them, natural pond for them to get at. So they're very happy, I'm sure. I just sort of came to the realization that the ducks were too messy for me to deal with, really, in such a small space. It was doable, but it was getting to be a lot less fun having them than really it should be. And so now they have a much nicer place. This pond was never built for ducks. It was built for koi, and worked quite nicely for koi, and then I sort of accidentally got ducks, and they are very messy, very messy. They will poo everywhere, obviously in the water as well, and that pollutes the water, which means you can't have fish if you have ducks. Not because the ducks will eat the fish, but because the ducks will kill the fish with their poop. So I now am dealing with the idea of what to do with the pond. So this is going to be fun. My ideas have ranged from making a sunken room in the garden, maybe like a game room or something. There are even diagrams that I've made. The idea being that you sort of use pallets to insulate, so that the pond liner is in there, so that's still waterproof. You would put pallets down and stuff straw. Oh, is it? They've started calling now, it's that time of year. And stuff pallets in there with straw to insulate, and then you'd sort of build a room inside there. You'd have to have a cover that's completely waterproof, otherwise you'd end up just sitting in water. But that was an idea, which was rather reluctantly gotten rid of. I'm now thinking along the lines of having another sort of aviary. I've got some fruit trees that I want to plant, and I don't have anywhere else to put them apart from in here. There's going to be a couple little cherry trees that go in here. The majority of them are going to go in the pond. So the pond's going to be emptied of water, which is going to be fun. Probably have to do that by hand because the pump has packed in. I might be able to borrow a pump, but otherwise it's going to be buckets. There's a lot of water in there. It's 1 metre deep, so that's going to be quite a few days work. The general idea is that I then fill it with some wood chip and soil and just sort of medium for things to grow in, and then I'm going to plant it up with stuff. So I'm going to make it nice and sort of pheasant friendly. There's going to be sort of posts in the corner. I'll build up slightly. I'll build up probably to the level of, you see this fence here, this bit here, so that the wind is sort of stopped by the fence and doesn't sort of catch the roof of it. So it's not going to be terribly tall, because it only comes up to sort of my shoulder height, but then it might, I'll build it up slightly so that the back is lower, but the front is a bit higher maybe. This is all a work in progress and may never happen. So that's the idea for that, and then have a solid roof on there, and of course some drainage, some kind of water collection. I'm also thinking that if I'm going to have pheasants, I want a sort of an airlock system for entry and exit, which would be good to have for the quail anyway. So to that end, this is my current door here. That is going to be just locked closed, and I'm going to make a second door here because I've got this step system here, these steps up here, so I can have the entry to the pheasantry there, the entry to the quailery there, and just build a sort of a little airlock system just here, so that I can enter the airlock, close the airlock behind me. If one of the doors swings open, it's not really a problem, because the pheasant or the quail will just get out here. So I have had a couple of escapees in the past, one of which unfortunately ended in the pond and I didn't notice, and it drowned, which was very sad. Another one which flew over the fence, I hadn't even noticed it fly out, flew over the fence and ended up in a neighbour's garden, and thankfully they found out that I had quail and brought it back to me. And another one that I didn't again notice, it sounds really bad, but it's over a course of a couple of years. Another one which I hadn't noticed flew and ended up in that corner there, there, and I just sort of was going back inside the house, saw this white thing on the ground. Thankfully it was one of the white ones, and sort of picked it up and popped it back in with the quail. So I have had a couple of instances. Right, if you're saying hello to us, let's go and say hello to you. Okay. Right, excuse me guys. Can I get past? I should probably bring you some treats, shouldn't I? I'll bring you some treats in a moment. Can I sit down? Is that okay? Oh, there we go. Oh, the door's swung open. This is the problem. This door doesn't really close very easily. I need 2 hands with which to close it. There we go. That should theoretically stay closed now. So, you guys are doing quite well, to be fair, aren't you? Anyone can say hello? No. Okay. They're sort of pottering along. They've done quite well on this medium here. They've done quite well on the wood chip, and I've tried to. I had thought that I'd just need to replace the wood chip just at the start of the winter, but actually, given the amount of moisture that gets in here, and the fact that quail poos are quite wet, and they build up a sort of a crust over the top of the wood chip, which means that affects the drainage, and it also means that they'll get it on their feet, and it'll harden on their toes, and they'll get what are only marginally kindly referred to as conkers on their feet. And that then obviously it builds up, so you start with a little bit and then more builds up and more builds up, and before you know it you've got something that is that big on their feet, and that happens remarkably quickly. Then at that point you've got to catch them, soak their feet, and try and get this concrete off their feet. And it's far better to just avoid that completely, because if you have sort of 30 quail and you have to do that, they've each got 3 toes, so 3 potential conkers, it gets quite demoralizing. So what I've done is it's good to sort of toss and agitate the wood chip, just sort of turn it over, and it's also good to lay fresh wood chip down. So there's actually been 3 layers of wood chip down this winter, and I've only had one that had a conker, and that fell off by itself. So compared to last year, when it was almost a perpetual struggle, that was absolutely awful. Try again. That was a squawk. They're just sort of building up their springtime calls. You're pecking my foot. I feel you. So that's something that just to remember for next year, is just to put fresh wood chip down on a regular basis, which will build the level up, but every now and again every couple of years I'll just scoop it all up and chuck it out. It'll be fine. So yeah, that's something to remember. And anyone's got any ideas about the roofing for sort of retrofitting an aviary, I'd be quite happy to hear them, because at the moment I don't really know. It's such an awkward roof as well, because I've used 3 greenhouses. I've got a very strange shape of aviary, because it's got sort of quite a few sort of wiggly waggly bits, that's the technical term, in the roof. And I'm quite happy to put more guttering in to collect the water. That's not a problem. It's just what I do to put the roof in place. I don't know. Anyway, that's a quick update. I've got the old dog cage out there, just behind this. There. Got this massive old dog cage that I don't think I have a use for it anymore. It was very useful for the ducks. I'm going to have to get rid of that somehow. And the old panels that I used to separate the the ducks from the rest of the garden. Those I'll get rid of as well. That was really just to contain the mess. So I'll get rid of those. There's so much to do in this garden this year. If I can get this sorted this year, I'll be quite happy. I might... These guys need some protection from the rain, and what I'll probably do is put bits inside the quailery that just means they can shelter underneath it as a stopgap. This guy here having a good old rummage. So I'll put some stuff inside here to give them just a bit more shelter. Temperature wise they're fine, they're very hardy and they don't seem to suffer from getting wet, but it would be nice for them to have somewhere that they can shelter now, given that there's no roof anymore. So I need to sort that as a priority. Another problem is that when it rains now, their food gets wet. So I need some kind of shelter for their food. And then the next thing I think will probably be to drain the pond, because that's been fine over winter. But as the temperature warms up, it's going to start to smell, and it's going to start to be an unpleasant process to get rid of the water. I've purposefully left it over winter. I was going to drain it over winter and just take that time to do it. But then I noticed I had a lovely yellow wagtail that would come and flit across the water surface and take the insects, and I just thought, I can't now drain the pond and rob that bird of that source of food in the hardest time of the year. So I'm going to, so I left it. I just left it. It was a convenient excuse for me, but it was quite nice when I was working just to see this little bird flitting across the water surface. It's quite pleasant for me. Excuse me. But now that the weather's going to start warming up, water's going to start warming up, and it's going to start to smell, so it needs to be emptied sooner rather than later. So that's a big job, and not a terribly pleasant one. Other than that, once that's done, I will then have to fill it in again with my chosen medium, which will probably be wood chip, because I get that for free from the allotment. Really? You talking? That's adorable. Good effort. 2 stars. So yes, I need to empty the pond and then obviously fill it again with the medium to plant the trees into, preferably before they start growing too much, because the more they grow, the more difficult they're going to be to move around. I've got 3 cherry trees, 2 of one variety and 1 of another. So 3 cherry trees, a plum and a pear, as well as 4 dogwoods and 4 hazels, and what may or may not be another cherry tree. But they're just sticks at the moment, so they're in a sort of a nursery area at the moment, just to get them in the ground because they were bare root. Plus my berry bush things, any that have survived the winter, because I haven't really been watering them, and my lemon tree, and those lemon trees as well, and a little shrub thing that I forget the name of, but has beautifully scented flowers this time of year. And and anything else I've got in the garden. So I've got all of that to fit in amongst here, plus three three of the three grapevines, which I wanted in here because of course it's got this plastic all around it. It's nice and warm, but now that's going to have to come off, so I'm going to have to rethink that as well. So there's rather a lot to get done in the garden this year. As the weather warms up, I'm going to start doing more things outside, whereas over the winter most of the crafty stuff I've been doing is sort of sewing and various things to the house. But now that the weather's going to hopefully start warming up, we did have a frost today, hopefully start warming up, I can start doing more outside and start on all of these projects. Try and get it finished. It's never going to be finished, is it? It's never going to be finished. And the neighbour's doing his bathroom, which is why we're hearing tiles being ground, which is great fun when he's doing it right outside of your window and you're trying to work. But hey, such is life. So if any of that interests you, feel free to subscribe, and I can promise plenty of chaos and hopefully a few successes. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing if you have done, and considering it if you haven't. And I'm going to sit in with the quail for a bit, and then I'm going to go and make myself some food. Here we go, guys. I see you. You want to fill your face? Can I have some, please? There you go. There you go, guys. Oh, this is my little disabled one. She was born that way, with her feet all deformed, and I did briefly consider euthanizing her. She's got both feet that point outwards like that, but she gets around and she seems to be holding her own against everyone. So I just figured, you know what, I'm going to give you a chance. She's grown to be quite a beautiful little girl. I wouldn't use her for breeding, of course, but she's done quite well. I try and make sure she gets her food as well, but she really does hold her own against everyone. Oh yeah? There we go. I like to do this with, in the winter, I get them a big sack of sunflower seeds and just chuck some about. It means that they have to dig around. So once they've got the obvious ones, the other bits sort of fall in the cracks and they get to scoop around for them. But yeah, she gets around quite well. I don't think I've ever seen her fly. She does what she needs to do. Yeah. The males have started to fight because it's starting to get that time of year. So I shall have to reduce my numbers. I already know which ones I want to keep, but I need to go through everyone and just double check who's male, who's female, and make that decision. But I need to leave it another week or so before I can really tell who's male and who's female. Particularly these white ones, they're difficult. You either see them calling and then catch them and go, oh, you're a male then if you're calling, or you can lift their tail and have a look at their bits, but that doesn't become obvious until the breeding season. not interested. You just sat. Okay. Fair enough.